Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, welcome. I am so delighted to introduce today's guest, Melissa Smith. Melissa is the CEO and founder of the PVA and the Association of Virtual Assistants. She is also the best-selling author of Hire the Right Virtual Assistant and Become a Successful Virtual Assistant. She's got a lot on her plate these days, and we're going to hear all about it now. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks for having me, Tammy.
This is great. I'm so excited to have you here. You know, this podcast is about transitions, and you've made a lot of them. And yet it feels like there's kind of some threads of continuity through everything you've done. And I'd love to hear about both sort of the continuity that's gone through your professional life, but also I know you've had some serious bumps in the road, and that's probably an understatement. I know that's an understatement. But tell us about your background and what you did in your earlier years and where you've landed now.
I'd be happy to. My background started as a young child. My mom was a secretary when I was growing up, back when that's what they were called. And I always knew that I wanted to grow up and be just like my mom. I thought she was, and I know she still is, such an amazing person. And she just had a way about her. And I thought she had the most powerful position in the office, because when I would go to visit her, people would constantly say, your mom is amazing. We wouldn't be able to do anything without your mom. And it never, as a young child, I didn't know what life was like as a secretary back then. So to me, she had the most powerful position in the office, and she got to serve, and she was always amazing at it. So I always knew that I wanted to grow up to be just like her. So I did. I went to secretary school. And then during my time at secretary school, we transitioned over to the term administrative assistant. And eventually I became an executive assistant and did that for over 15 years. And I never thought my life would ever change. I loved my job. I love what I did. I found great value in it. And then in 2012, my husband committed suicide, and that changed my life. I became the breadwinner in my family. To say, which is one of the things that it forced me into. So that came with a lot of different changes, but it didn't immediately change my career. A year later, I would move back home to California and begin working there.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Georgia at the time. Okay. So I was born and raised in California. And after my father passed away, then I moved to Georgia to be closer to my mother.
I see.
And then we moved back for a short amount of time. Going home was about really me centering again and finding a place and just feeling like myself again. And I got it just that. And I was working at a great school and loved what I did, was surrounded by the most amazing people. But then my daughter at the time was entering in her senior year in high school, and her home is in Georgia. This is where she grew up. So she came to me and said, I want to go back to Georgia. I want to finish my senior year in high school in Georgia. And I knew I had to give that to her. I knew she needed that. So I went to my boss to give my notice, and he said, we don't want to lose you. How can we keep you? And I said, I can do most of what I do virtually. I don't have to be in the office. And he said, okay, let's do that. So that began my virtual assistant career. I was the first remote employee for the company. And then a few months later, contracts were sent out. And I just thought very naively, which for me is really good. If I knew what I was getting into, I wouldn't have done it. But I thought, what if I could have my own business? What if I could have really everything that, I want, which was actually, now that I think about it, not that much. but it
Oh,
seemed
really?
like the world. It seemed like the world at the time. I just wanted more freedom and flexibility.
Ah,
So again, it was such a great place. And they said, we respect your decision. If you ever want to come back, just let us know. And with that amount of security, to kind of fall back on if, I
yeah.
fell flat on my face, which I would, I just thought I'm going to do this. And I went out on my own and started my own virtual assistant business.
Wow. Did you know what it would look like when you decided to go out on your own? Like, had you been thinking about it for a while? Or like, I'm curious because it's like all these years, I know one thing we talked about beforehand, you had said, that you've always been about service and you loved what you did. And, your employer loved you, you loved your employer. It was a love fest. And,
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're thinking, well, I think I'll start my own business. It's a very different way of working than working for someone else, right? So did you have a plan in mind, or was it just like, hey, I think I'll do this?
No, it was a complete out of body experience. I had no plan at all. When I say that I naively started my own business, that is an understatement. I had no plan, no understanding of how to run a business. I didn't even know really how to make money. I mean, really, this was not anything that I would suggest anyone else do. It worked for me. There was lots of failures along the way. I always say, like, when my coach started working, I had to hire a coach because I had no idea. She had her work cut out for her. I was like sub-zero training because I just was so clueless. All I knew how to do was serve people. I didn't know what that looked like when you have to serve other people as a business owner and know your value proposition and your statement and how to close or how to do a consultation. I knew how to fill out applications. I knew how to get an interview. I knew how to interview well. Nothing I did really prepared me for being a business owner, except that I always was just the person who would make it work. I always knew that there was always work to be done, that someone always needed a job. That's basically what I went on. But when I tell you I had no idea and no plan, that is not an understatement. I couldn't even the walkthrough process that I did with my coach of filling out a business plan was so overwhelming to me that I just like, do I really need this? And she's like, yes, you really need this.
But you knew enough to hire a coach.
So what I did know was, so I wouldn't even say I knew that. I knew that I needed support. So I always had a strong network. Because in my career, because I went to secretary school, I did not have a degree. So when I would go to get promotions, I was never qualified because I did not have a degree. So I constantly had to change jobs in order to promote myself and pay myself better.
Right.
So I guess in some ways I had that kind of mindset, but I didn't know that was like a business or entrepreneurial mindset. So I always knew what it was to have a strong network, to know how to get my foot in the door, to get an interview where I may not have been able to get one otherwise.
I think that's an important point, actually, Melissa, that I want my listeners to understand is that you didn't have a college degree. And even when you were building your career, which you were doing, people, even in the roles that you were in, were expected to have a 4-year degree in some.
Oh, absolutely.
And so in order for you to advance, you'd have to change jobs. And I think in those earlier years, you were changing jobs every few years, it sounds like.
I did. Before it was a millennial thing, I was changing jobs every 2 years.
We know you're not a millennial. And so it sounds like there's just this sort of intuitive sense that you have about moving yourself forward.
I think I just like the challenge. I would every 2 years, I would get kind of bored and I would apply for other positions or attempt to apply and then know that my bosses were always very frank and honest with me. And they told me like I wouldn't be able to apply or wasn't eligible, but that they would give me a great recommendation to move on.
Mhm.
And so I really took that to heart. But the idea of my role is always to create systems and automation and make things run seamlessly.
Mhm.
Idea of an assistant who never takes vacation, or when they leave the office crumbles. That's
Right.
actually the opposite of what an assistant's role is.
Right.
You know, my role is really to do all those things and not to be needed as much as be valued and wanted.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. To not be needed, but be valued and wanted.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, when I would come back from vacation, it was great. They're like, wow, things really ran smoothly. We missed you, but things really ran smoothly. I'm like, well, then I've done my job, because
Yeah.
the last thing I ever wanted to do was not be able to take vacation. These
Yeah.
people that like never took vacation days in their life, I can't relate.
Yeah.
I always took my vacation days.
Yeah. 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 I can't relate to that either. But, and you were doing all of this while also raising a family. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, I can't say that when I was changing jobs early on, my kids were very young and they were in
Mhm.
sports and we were traveling. By the time I started my business, my son would already be gone, and he was in college outside the house. My
Uh-huh.
daughter was still at home. She was in high school. But to circle back to your question, I had a strong network. And so when I told people I was going out on my own, my cousin, who is much older than I am, said, you need to join this association. And the association is NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anything about it, but I trusted her completely. She was a businesswoman her whole life. And so I joined immediately, and
Mhm.
I started going to their events. And it was there that I heard of the term coach
Uh-huh.
first time, and learned what that was and the different types of coaches available. And so once I found the right type of coach for me, then I hired one. And she specialized in women who were first starting their business,
Uh-huh.
didn't know the paths to go, and felt like they had a really strong service or business model or product, but no clients to match that because they didn't have a business infrastructure.
So when you began with the coach, were you thinking that you were going to build up your own clientele and be their VA? Or because I know your model now is that you help vet out VAs for other people, that you're not doing VA work for everyone else. You're trying to make good matches between clients and VAs. So at that point, though, you were still providing VA services. Is that right?
Correct. Right. So I was providing VA services, and it was very difficult because as an EA in the office, you are the Jack or Jill of all trades, and that's why people hire you. As a virtual assistant, it's very different, and you have to have a really strong niche. Clients don't need people to do everything.
Mm.
They need a VA to do something very specific. And
Yeah.
so when we got down to it, my niche was something that was completely off my radar that I would never have thought of on my own. But I actually was the assistant to people, particularly men, who wanted to write a book but had full-time jobs.
Oh,
So
wow.
I helped them project manage the process, do other things in their business, and really give them the space to write while everything else was still getting taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So it was I would have never come up with that on my own. Never.
So how did you come up with that then? How did you
So I was
discover that?
working with this coach,
Okay.
and one of the things that we did was we just started off by making sure I was making money, right? Just make
Okay.
sure I can stay in business while we
Right.
figure this out.
Right.
So that was good. And I was doing that. And she switched me over from an hourly rate model to a price package model. And I just can't say enough how powerful it was, because during that time, if I had just been working by the hour, I would have never been able to stay in business.
Mhm.
And I was doing a lot of things that I didn't necessarily want to grow my business in, but could I make money at them? Absolutely. And that was
Yes.
running events, doing a lot of fundraising, doing a lot of sales for other people as
Mhm.
their assistant.
Right.
But
Right.
that's not
Right.
how I wanted to grow my business.
Right.
And then I had people reach out to me to help them write a book. And I said no. And
Uh-huh.
so she said, why are you saying no? And I said, because I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I've never done that before. And she's like, well, you've done a lot of things in life that you never done before. Why wouldn't you try it? And I said, because I feel like I can't promise that I'm going to be the best. And she said, I ask you to be the best. I mean, she just kept on, like, she wouldn't let it go. And it was a very valuable lesson because I tell the same thing to when I train VAs now. When people keep asking you the same thing, you're putting something out into the world, even if you don't realize it. You need to go with that.
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
in fact, those clients would turn around, and that's how I wrote my own book, because they would keep saying, when are you going to write your book?
Yeah.
And I thought, what would I write about? Which is hilarious now, because now I'm being told, you need to pare down your writing. Your writing's too long.
And now you've just published your second book.
A third.
Oh, your third.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. How did I miss that?
Well, the third one is actually, it's a revised and expanded version, but it's so different.
Oh, I see. Got it.
It's double the size of the first book.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's so funny.
It's completely revised and expanded. So
wow.
I definitely count it as a completely new book.
Wow. So, I want to reflect on something you told me when we had our preliminary conversation. You said that and I don't know a lot of people who could say this. So this to me makes you extra, extra special. You said, I've loved every job I've had.
It's true.
So how's that possible? I love hearing it, but I'm wondering, I want to know, like, how's that? So, it's great. So if you've loved every job you've ever had, then when we talk about making changes and transitions, now I understand you lost your husband tragically. That's obviously going to make you make some very serious changes and decisions in your life. You have 2 children you're raising. That's going to impact your decisions, right? But if you've loved every job you've had, how do you then decide to make a change? What are the things that then compel you or would compel you to make a change? Because I'm thinking that for this podcast, for example, that a lot of people want to make a transition because maybe they don't love what they're doing. They want to be happier. And so what are the elements that propelled you into some transitions?
My family, we're so close, and they really do propel and are like the foundation of all my decisions. So my dad had a job, and usually 2 or 3 jobs that he hated. Every day. Wow. And he didn't just hate them. He had to commute 2 or 3 hours in traffic every day. And, he did it because he was raising 3 kids on his own and loved us and needed to turn the lights on, pay the bills, and put food on the table. And I saw him as a young child, and I thought, I don't know. I knew then I didn't want to do it. As an adult now, I don't know how he did it. I have no idea how he did it. My mom, I didn't know it. I didn't know it because she's such a different person.
Yeah.
She would never say anything bad about anybody. I thought she loved all of her jobs. She didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know that she hated some of her jobs because she never, ever complained. She never said a bad word about anybody. Huh. And she still doesn't. So when I grew up and I was working, I just always knew that, in my heart, that I wasn't going to do anything that I didn't love, and that it was possible because my mom loved all her jobs. And
you had a great role model.
I just saw myself as incredibly valuable. And a little bit of backstory as well. So I was also a teen mom. So I had a child very young. So when I entered the workforce, I already had a child to think about. And whatever was going to pull me away from my son had to be worth my time. Yeah. It had to be worth my time. There was no room in my life to have a job that I hated. So anytime I went out for a job, I wasn't just thinking about how valuable I am. I was thinking about how valuable it is for my family. And making those transitions and loving my job, it also made it possible for my employers and my bosses to say, we totally get it. We understand. We want to see you succeed. We want you to be successful. You deserve that. And they've always given me great recommendations. I'm still friends with just about every one of them.
Wow.
And then the transition to go out on my own was really because my family had needed me more than ever during that time. I needed to be home for my daughter. I never knew when she might need me. My son was in school, in college, and was going through a really rough transition. And I needed to know I didn't have to ask anyone to take off time. I just needed to get on a plane and go see him.
Yeah.
My nephews and my niece in California, I wanted to be close to them. I didn't want to miss their lives. While my children and my sister's children are much older, my brother's children are much younger, and I didn't want to miss their lives growing up. And so I just knew that although I loved my work, it didn't serve the needs of my family anymore. And that was the driving decision. And to this day, I still go out to my brother's, and I get to spend a week or two watching his kids during the summertime, and I still do my work.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't have to make the choice between one or the other.
Right. I love there's a couple things you just talked about that I think is really important to kind of point out here. One is that many of us form our ideas about work based on what we've seen our parents do for work, whether that's positive or negative, right? And so I think that often will set the tone for how we are going to then step into the world of work. So clearly that had an influence on you, and clearly the way you've gone about it, I'm sure, has had some influence on your children. And then I love the frame that you put around, look, I was a teen mom. I was a young mom. It had to be worth my while to go do something I liked to do while I had this young son with me. And, that's a very interesting, I don't want to say interesting, that's not the right word. That's a life affirming frame to have around that, because I could imagine that somebody might say, look, I've got another mouth to feed. I'm going to have to find any way possible, even if I hate it. And you didn't look at it that way. You looked at it as, I've got a responsibility, but my responsibility is on more than one level. It's a responsibility to be a happy, satisfied person, because that's going to make me a happy, satisfied mom, probably a better mom. I'm guessing. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think somebody else in your shoes would have maybe gone after some job they hated, but said, hey, I've got to bring in some cash, And so I'm just appreciating sort of the lens that you chose or naturally look through to see how you go about your work. I'm hoping the people listening to this really take many, many, many pages out of your book on this, because it's really such a positive and life-affirming way to go about looking at how you fulfill your needs in life.
There are so many jobs available. Even during the recession, I had to get 3 jobs. I had 3 jobs at the time during the recession. And when other people were saying, they couldn't find a job. Now, were these jobs that I would want for my entire career? These long-term things I did? No. But did it pay the bills? Absolutely. Yeah. And the idea is all about perception, right? A person's perception is their reality. And if you don't believe that there is a job out there that was created just for you, or that you can create a business and a plan just for you, then you won't. And I can't tell you that I've had this mindset for every area of my life. That I won't say. Yeah. But when it came to work, I always had the mindset. My parents did, their parents did, who were extremely poor. If you want to work, there's work. Yes. And how you view that work is up to you. Yes. And so even the positions that I had that I didn't feel were my calling, right, I looked for how I could use my calling to make them better. And as long as I found a way to serve somebody, then I could say, I'm using my calling. These are not bad decisions. These aren't maybe lifelong decisions, but I can go to work and I can be happy to go to work doing this and helping and serving others.
Yeah. And that's really been when we were talking earlier about that thread that's gone through everything, it's all about service. And now, boy, that thread is stretched pretty far. I mean, in terms of the way your business has developed, the books you have written, 3 books, now that I know there are 3. You have just launched an association. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I'm very excited about the association. This is something that I couldn't have imagined on my own. So it goes back to a network, and someone else planted the seed in me and it made sense. I had seen a different vision and it seemed so far away. It seems so far away. I since 2015, I've had this vision of creating this space for virtual assistants, and month after month and year after year, it just didn't seem to be getting any closer. And then I had a conversation with a woman who said, have you thought about an association and how an association could work well with you? And it just seemed to answer all the questions that I was asking myself, but couldn't answer for myself. And so I created this association. And one of the most amazing things about it is that I didn't do it on my own.
Aha.
I knew I did not want to do this on my own because I have my own business. I have my own books. This association had to be so much larger than me. It had to represent multiple personalities, multiple people, multiple perceptions, multiple business models, you name it. Like it needed to be a place where VAs could come and feel like this is my place. This is my place. These women understand me. These people get me, and they hear me. And so I just put out this really simple email, and it was, I can't even remember what it said, but it was something really simple like, do you want to change the VA industry? That was it.
Yeah.
And I got 3 responses, and all 3 of those women are now part of my executive board.
Excellent.
And it is just so exciting. And they all said the same thing. They wanted to do something different. They wanted a new challenge. They wanted to see change. They wanted to advance the community of virtual assistants. And so we formed, we were doing it, we're launching it. I am so excited because when I think back to my career and I think back to the opportunities that I've had, those opportunities would not have been available if it weren't for people like my mom and so many others who actually advocated for our industry and for the rights of assistants and for our pay, for our wages, opportunity growth, brought respect for our roles. It would not be possible without them. There's no way that when I entered into the workforce that I entered in the same way as my mom did. It's just not, that's not possible.
Right.
And the fact is the VA industry is growing so rapidly and it's going to go through a lot of changes. And one, I am instrumental in making some of those changes, but 2, there are going to be some changes that people are going to try to make that I might not agree with, and I don't think that are best for the industry. And there needs to be someone to advocate on behalf of all virtual assistants and help make the right changes and make sure that our industry is growing well and with standards and protection, not just for VAs, but for the clients as well. Clients deserve protection and have a trusted resource. And that's what we're about. And so I'm so excited to have founded this, and that this is really the next chapter and phase of my life and my career.
Wow. So is that, so you said you're not doing that alone though. You have this executive board, you have the association, the membership is comprised of virtual assistants, but you also talk about the rights of clients. Or could clients possibly be members of the association? Or
yes.
How does that, what does that look like? what does somebody get if they are a member of the association?
So we're opening up to founding members, and the founding members that are virtual assistants, they will really get a place to have industry standards, trust. I've formed partnerships so they can have benefits directly from the companies they know, love, and trust. We'll have a place they can get real-time questions answered. Real-time support, a place to be heard. And when you're remote working, there's always, who's out there to not only help create a sense of community, but let me tell you, when you celebrate a win alone, I think that's worse than celebrating like a loss alone.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of having a place where, a VA could join in and say, I signed my first big client, or I got my first client, or I launched my website today, or I'm doing a new service, and we could help that person and support them.
Yeah.
For the client, while we anticipate having a much larger forum in the future, for the client, we want to support them now, and they play such an important role in virtual assistants and what kind of services we offer now and in the future. That what we're offering founding client members is, this is a place where you can go and ask all your virtual assistant questions. Maybe you're not in a place to hire someone full time, or you don't have enough hours to commit, but you know what? You need support. And maybe you've been trying to set up this funnel campaign for a long time and you just need technical support. You need a question answered. You need to know how to create a system. You need to know the difference between software. What are the pros and cons for the people that are using it? You can join and you can have your own channel, and VAs can go in and respond to all your questions for you. And you can save yourself hours and hours. I know clients come to me all the time and they're like, I spent hours trying to get this Divi plugin to work, or this funnel system. Why isn't it not working? Or my cart is a mess, and it's just all these different things. I'm super low tech, so I totally get it. And
which I think is so funny. I get such a kick out of that. I remember when we were talking and you said, I would never describe myself as detail oriented or high tech. And yet you're connected to this field that supports so much of that, and yet there's clearly a very, vital role that you're playing in this. So I just get a kick out of that.
It's, but I see it as part of, what I do and part of what I've always done, and a part of like how I've always worked and love the work that I've done. You just find the people who love it. You find the person that loves the spreadsheets, the person that loves creating zaps and ClickFunnels and and actually the person who loves writing standard operating procedures. Those people really exist. And they're like, who loves sending cold emails? Who loves reaching out to people and asking if they want to do this, or, going out and getting sales. And I remember people saying all the time, like, why don't you just come work for us in sales? Like, you're so good at sales. And because for you, it's sales. But when I do it for me, it's just an extension of who I am. It's not sales anymore. That's why it would never work.
Right. It's a very different equation. So if you think about, all the twists and turns, the transitions that you've made over the years, what do you think are some of the key elements to, I don't want to say making a successful transition, because transitions you can learn from any transition, but what do you think are the most important aspects of making a transition that helps you to move forward?
I think when you start to release fear and what you think to be true. So I tell my team, I said, I don't care how adamant I am or how much I think I know something. I know that I'm right until you tell me I'm wrong. And I get proven wrong all the time. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can be wrong and just be learning something.
Yeah.
And I think it's about having that willingness to learn and knowing that it's okay to be wrong. And, it's it's become cliche, but releasing your old beliefs and what you thought to be true. And it's different because I spoke to this woman and she said it so perfect. And I'm not going to get it as perfect as she did, but she said that person is still you.
Yes.
You are just a better version of yourself now.
Yes.
So it doesn't serve you because, it's like you've lost weight. Those old clothes, that's still your style, but they don't fit you anymore.
Right.
And I think in my life, I was just so afraid of everything. It's like I speak of a different person now because I had anxiety for most of my life.
Wow.
For over 15 years, I just had horrible anxiety. And then I was afraid to fly for most of my life. And those things are so foreign to me now. And I did this interview once and it was quoted back to me. And I thought, wow, that was really good. I didn't know I said that. But I said, I just told myself I was no longer going to be afraid of being afraid. And I think each of us has something that we hold back for whatever reason. And when we decide that we're going to let it go, even though it's a little bit scary, but we're not going to be afraid that we're afraid that it's scary. It just allows you to be the better version of yourself. Because I think if I look back to my life and career, when I would see people and think, how does that woman do it? What is she doing? I don't know if I could be as great as she is. And I don't know that I could do that. I mean, it's just so overwhelming. And the point is, I was never supposed to be anybody else. I was only supposed to be myself. And every day, my only job is to be a little bit better than I was yesterday.
Well, on that very uplifting and sweet note, I want to thank you and ask you, how can people find out about your work and all the various things that you are doing and how they might be able to get involved if they want to?
You can email me at melissa@thepva.com. The Association of Virtual Assistants is the Association of VAs.com. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter @the PVA. My books are on Amazon. I'm doing my best to make sure everyone can find me. And I respond to all my emails. I have a team of VAs that work for me so I can respond to all my emails. And that's my main priority, to make sure that people are heard. And I do that by responding to emails. So,
well, and I know that you are an excellent, excellent correspondent and responder. And we will have all of those connections and handles and links on the show notes. So nobody will have any excuse not to get in touch with Melissa. So Melissa, thank you so very, very much for your time today. I wish you all the best with the newest book and the association launching and everything else that you're doing. I'm definitely going to take many, many pages out of your book and keep taking the high road. I'm really inspired by our conversation today. Thank you.
Oh, Tammy, thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Melissa Smith. It was so special to speak with her and learn about her professional and personal journey, along with the important insights as she has developed her career. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? Is there something you'll put into action this week that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 022. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. Are you thinking about what's next for you? Ready to consider your options or begin a process of exploration to get clarity, energy, and plans you need to move forward? I am piloting a small group for 4 to 6 professional women who are curious, willing, and ready to engage in a 3-month program that offers the information, inspiration, and support you need to get where you are going next. We will begin in June 2019, as summer provides an easy time for reflection and the opportunity to look towards the future. By September, you will be refreshed and ready to take on new endeavors. Interested? Questions? Contact me through my website or via email, and we will schedule a conversation to explore the possibilities. If you enjoyed this episode with Melissa Smith, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I hope so. I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find our page at tammygulerloeb.com/Apple. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.